Welcome to Translation Confidential. This is Peter Argondizzo and Patrick Daley, and today we are joined by Dan. How the hell am I going to pronounce your last name?
I don't know. Listen,
I'm from the south side of Milwaukee. I
did research to pronounce yours.
Milczarski.
Great. Fantastic.
How'd I do?
If I was in Poland, that would be 100% accurate. Here in the States, they just say Milczarski.
Milczarski. Okay, very good. Dan, thank you for joining us. Dan is our Wizard of all things. That's your new title. Tell Bruno that is your new title. Wizard of all things at Blackbird. I had the honor of being on his podcast recently, and I thought we should really bring Dan on to Translation Confidential so we can talk about where the industry's going. And, my whole thing lately is we're trying to keep this positive. I think that there's a way for all of us to succeed and move forward. And I have to tell you, the folks at Blackbird are making that possible. So we'll talk about that all today. But I want to just start with a little something that kind of happened this week. I sat through a presentation on AI that it left me frustrated. And it's not because the content was too advanced, but because it was deliberately mystifying. It felt like the goal was to impress, not to inform. Big words, big complex diagrams, even admittedly, this was created by a GPT. Well, it looks like hell. So vague promises, all with no clear takeaway. And let me just say this clearly. That's not how we move this industry forward. When we talk to colleagues, customers, or our vendors about AI, our job is to make it simple. We need to start with real business problems, not massive buzzwords, and work backward, right? Start with a business problem and work backward, this dovetails really well into what we're going to talk about today. And we need to work backward to practical solutions. We don't need magic. We need momentum. AI should be demystified. It's a lot like translation memory in the day. Remember when that came out? It was like, what the hell is this? Neural machine translation. What the hell is this? So AI should be demystified and not idolized. It's a tool. It's not a temple. And if you're truly helping others embrace it, what you're going to do is suggest small steps. Always what I'm a big advocate of. Here in our own agency, and when I talk to colleagues, and I chat a lot with colleagues. I'm in a technology group at ALC, and I always say, guys, just start small. Pick something that you're like, hey, I think AI can help. An RFP generator, I don't know, anything that you can do just with the chat GPT you buy off the shelf. So start with low risk pilots and plan a clear path forward. Shouldn't be a cryptic roadmap that doesn't lead anywhere. We're going to create this massive thing with, 13 connected agents. And why? Why do that to start with? That doesn't make any sense. So let's be the ones who turn the lights on, not the ones who make the room darker. That's it. I'm off my soapbox. I've said enough. I just, guys.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I feel like some of the best AI solutions aren't necessarily like sexy. They're like, they work in the background and they do something really cool that kind of makes everyone's life easier. But I know some of we've talked about like Apple and OpenAI and like their huge keynotes about that thing and like all of these transformational things. I think we've kind of yet to see anything that's like insanely different with AI than what we've seen with people. So like little things will start to add up and kind of snowball. But I think like you're saying, if you start at the top with this gigantic idea, like it's destined to fail. You have 100%. To really start with the small steps and really build towards it.
Yeah, Dan's like, what's going on in this podcast? Does this always start with a monologue, or what's going on here?
I like monologues, and I like the good soapbox too, because I completely agree, and I've spent a good chunk of my career trying to demystify technology in general. Because the fact that there's so much fear around technology, there's so much fear around change because of technology, and the more you try to be the Wizard of Oz hiding things, behind the curtain, the more that fear perpetuates and the less there is progress. And yeah, there's money to be had off of fear, and that's the motive there. The motive is, if I come out as the Wizard of Oz, then I'm the one that's going to get the money for doing mundane things in the background that people, if you told them, is like, yeah, this is what's going on under the hood. Oh, but I think having that philosophy of, talking real to people is like, yeah, you have a problem. This is how we're solving it. We're going to use AI for this little portion right here. and this is how it works, people feel more comfortable and people trust you. And then they want you to solve more problems because that's what we're in the business of doing. We're in the business of solving people's business problems. That's it.
Percent. Dan, I love it. Thank you guys for listening to me this morning. I appreciate it. Dan, seriously, I made up a title for you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? Then we're going to work backwards. Let's start with today. Who do you work for? What's your title? What do you do? What do you love about working at Blackbird?
Listen, what I love about working at Blackbird is exactly what I just said, solving people's problems, right? Like, I mean, if you ever watch the show Lost, I'm Jack. I can get like really obsessed with solving people's problems to the point where, I probably break myself at times, but that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy understanding complex problems and breaking them down, simplifying things, and then helping piece it back together to a solution. And that's what Blackbird allows me to do. So as VP of Solutions, see, it's right in my title. I get to.
Oh, is that it? That's the real one.
It is. It's VP
not
of Solutions.
Wizard. Okay.
Yeah. I do like Wizard though. I'll work that into my my annual evaluation. But yeah, I mean, Blackbird is this tool that allows me to sit down with our customers and say, what are you trying to solve? And piece it together like Lego blocks. And it's so much fun. It really is.
And Dan, if I'm an LSP that, I come to you and I say, hey, Dan, I heard Argondizzo going on and on about this tool. I caught your podcast. But listen, I don't have a CTO. I don't, I've got moderate tech chops. I don't know. Is Blackbird for me?
It's a great question. I feel that the companies that do have someone who is an owner of the product, it will be committed to making it successful, is more important than being a tech person. Now, I feel that, the solutions architect, the more techie minded, pick up on it faster. But if you're just an inherent like problem solver, if you're just someone who is committed to, learning, like, I mean, Peter, listen, I mean, you and I were going back and forth about a month or so ago about like, oh, you can try this, you can try this. And then you send me like Loom videos that are like, you felt like you were just like, like Minority Report, like, moving everything around on the big screens. Like you looked like, a tech wizard by the end of the day. I mean, it wasn't like you were playing around with Blackbird for weeks. It was a day of you testing things out and you got to figure it out. So it really is just an owner. That's who you need. Someone that's committed to making it successful. So find that person in your organization, and then Blackbird is absolutely the tool for you.
I love that, Dan. And obviously, our CTO is like, yeah, I'm busy, I'm doing things. So he's like, go have fun. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. And thank you for the compliment. Couldn't have done it without, some little pushes in the right direction from your group. So I appreciate that. But yes, I think if you're moderately tech savvy, which most of us who have been in the industry are, because you have to be, right? You can definitely attack this thing. So I encourage you, not that this is a commercial for Blackbird, but I encourage you to reach out to Dan and give it a look. Because for our colleagues that are struggling with this stuff, and again, it doesn't have to be mystical, start small, look for some internal things that you can improve, and I think you're going to be really happy. So let's go here, Dan. So you've been around the block a little bit in our world here. So before, making the leap into tech, what sparked the shift for you, and what's your perspective on localization since this, AI, is that what it's called? This AI thing?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was a passion play for me. Right. As I mentioned, like, I love to be able to help people. And, I think that there is a lot of stress and pressure, and you should, after the show, please give your CTO a little pat on the back. Just say, hey, thank you. Because I feel that there is a ton of pressure on technology leadership on LSP side. And it's increasingly growing and growing and growing. And you're seeing people burn out from this because, the technology is rapidly changing. You have tech debt. You have archaic systems that you got to build around and solve around. You have the pressures of AI. You've got the pricing pressures. You've got, CEOs of massive companies saying to their IT teams, figure it out with AI now. And then that gets pushed down onto the LSPs. So ton of like pressure for technology folks in the LSPs, and me feeling some of that pressure, saying, hey, it's really going to fill my bucket to help a lot of people solve this problem. So instead of like working at one LSP to help them solve a problem, working at Blackbird now allows me to help numerous technology people that are struggling with this to possibly have a path forward, or at least get the pressure valve off a little bit, so they have some breathing room to strategize. I mean, because that's the thing, is when you're so stuck in the weeds of like dealing with today, having a technology strategy on top of that, can you imagine? Yeah.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
the thing that in our industry, LSPs haven't had to have, right? They've historically, right? You remember, I'm old. People were just worried about, like, all right, how are we going to manage our terminology? And they were very focused on the language aspects. And now they're forced to look outside and think about, how are we getting the data? How are we curating it? What problems are we've become more of tech consultants, I would say, is really where it's gone. Patrick, I think you're next in the Inquisition.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say we do have 2 movie and TV references for everyone with their bingo cards, so you can check those off, and we'll keep those coming, I'm sure. But we got lost in Minority Report. But yeah, my next question is just on, we've had this discussion before, Peter and I have, about build versus buy. So we know that you're in a position now where you help companies build automation into their localization stacks. So how do you help those teams decide whether they should build in-house or plug and play with something kind of more off the shelf?
Again, like coming from a place where I was trying to build a better mousetrap myself, I look at like what Blackbird is able to do, and I'm like, ooh, man, I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out, whereas if I would have had this on day one, I could have focused my time and attention on something else. So I think, and this is a retrospective of things, like a little less arrogance, maybe a little less like, oh, I'm gonna build the best thing in the world, where it's like you can look around and say, oh, this is already great. It's like, how many companies tried to build machine translation engines to just get steamrolled by Google and Microsoft and all the big boys? They spent millions of dollars in R&D. Now, some of them succeeded. I'm not saying it was across the board, but a lot of people tried to go head to head with them. And now you know what they're doing? They're using trained Google engines and trained Microsoft engines in the background anyway, and they're selling like, oh, but we curate the content, we clean the content, and they're selling the services around someone else's technology. So do that. Realize like what you actually need to build to be competitive, because oftentimes it is like, if I have this one thing in my industry or in my client base, that's going to be a differentiator against someone else. So I'm going to focus in on that. Everything else, like, if you can find a way to use external technology to be an ends to the means, and now you don't want to be too dependent on external technology. I get that. But, realize like a lot of the back end stuff, a lot of the engine stuff, a lot of the, file manipulation, all those things, there's solutions out there. Don't focus your time and attention like doing that. Like, have a core base, and then you can always build around it too. You could always have something that is an external piece of technology that you can augment, as opposed to trying to build something that already exists that works really well. So I'd say, yeah, if you're going to focus any time on development, it's got to be a huge differentiator from you and your competition to see the ROI on that.
That makes complete sense, Dan. So talking a little bit about automation, right? So that's the big thing at Blackbird, right? But also preserving the human layer, right? So we go to these conferences. Its roadshow was no different. You can feel the angst. You can feel the concern of our brethren that, again, are more purists of the language, and they're focusing on what they do. I've done this for 30 years. This is how I've always done it. In talking about preserving that human layer, how do you strike the balance so that automation empowers rather than replace?
I think it's making sure that people are cognizant that there is a choice, right? And oftentimes there is this concept of, so we got to fully automate everything. It's like, no. And to your point earlier, it's like you can find pieces of your process to automate, because it's not a value added service. Like, there should be no reason someone takes a file and moves it from here to there. What value is that adding? You can do it automatically, actually reduce the risks by having automation. A human's moving files in this day is just crazy. So I look at it this way: is anytime there's a human in the loop, they're adding value to the process. And I'm very much a process and technology person, where it's like, you don't just sit down, buy a piece of technology, implement a piece of technology that's going to just be worthless to you. Understand your processes, understand like how things are interacting, looking at the inputs to one process become, the outputs of one process becomes the inputs of that process. And you look at that piece right there, and it's like, that's where technology is going to help me. And that's where automation is going to help me. And this is where I'm not comfortable with technology doing this for me. So I'm going to put a human checkpoint right here, because I'm not comfortable with it. right? I need to look at this. So I think it's that. It's like, if you look at digital transformation, like, why does it fail? It's at the core, digital transformation is organizational transformation. It is change management, and people fear things. And so understand, what's your fear? The fear of letting go, the fear of being replaced, and address those fears head on when it comes to automation. It's like, great. I remember a story when I first got into this industry many, many moons ago. I was doing data entry. That's how I started. I started I was doing data entry. And then I was told, it's like, by the way, the data entry is going away because now it's going to be automated. And what was my instant reaction? It's like, I'm out of a job. But no, my boss at the time says, so think of other aspects of the organization that you really want to be focusing in on, so I can get you the training to make sure that you're able to do those things. It wasn't I was being replaced from a job. It was I was given an opportunity to do something else. And you know what? Within 2 years, I was the director of quality. So I mean, I took that as not, oh no, I'm going to just hide behind the fear and I'm irreplaceable in data entry, which I wasn't. I looked at it as, this part of my job is going away. How can I now add value to an organization? How can I be entrepreneurial and demonstrate that I can do something higher value than data entry and grow my career from there? So I think that's the approach that people need to take is, yes, some of your stuff should be replaced. Have the controls to determine what those are, and then you can build your career and add value to those processes where you are staying a human in the loop. Yeah.
I love that, Dan. I mean, that's exactly the positivity that, we're looking for, is that, I keep telling people that, if you've been doing this for 30 years, you have an amazing amount of knowledge in your head, right? So that's the value of what you have. Not necessarily that you're a Trados jockey or you can work the hell out of a Trados file like nobody's business. Well, okay, that's great. Again, also more expertise. But take that expertise and look at, all right, how do I get to the next phase? How do I become the best MTPE person there is? How do I shift my focus so I can operate in this new environment? And I think there's plenty of paths. Compliments, by the way, to your old boss, and to you, because that obviously meant you were a valued member of the team. They're like, hey, this Dan guy's pretty sharp. We want to keep him around. Let's figure out how to keep him. I think those of us that are leaders in this industry, I mean, that's where we should focus. I even think, like, in a lot of the bigger corporations, they're coming out, hey, well, we're going to do this, and 25% of our fill in the blank staff is going to be on the street next year. Well, okay, great. You invested all that money in that 25% of fill in the blank department. And, I think repurposing people is really a higher calling, right? It's sure, some people may not they may opt out. They may go elsewhere. You're going to lose some of those folks. But for those that are dedicated to your organization, try to figure out where else to put them. I mean, come on, they're going to help you somewhere else. So anyway, Patrick, you're up to bat, and you probably have some follow-up questions or something. By the way, Patrick is a walking IMDb, for those of you that don't know that.
Okay.
So that's why he grabbed onto those references. There will likely be other movie references. I almost wore my shirt, "Take the cannoli, leave the gun." I almost wore that today. That would have been so appropriate.
Number 3 again on the bingo card.
You're welcome.
But yes, I could picture the scene in Minority Report where he's playing with the TV and just like waving his hands around and doing his police work there.
What I was doing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, going back to having the human layer, I can think back to, Peter, like the early days when we were doing website translations of like, they could be fully automated, but like we made a conscious effort to say, okay, like here's the stopping points and here's why they're important. And like that made the workflow that much better. Whereas if we went fully automatic with everything, like I think we would have opened ourselves up to lots of risks that were unnecessary when we could put those positive stops in the project and say, okay, here's the point where we need to kind of roll up our sleeves and do the work rather than letting automation kind of take the wheel for the whole project.
Well, and the scary part is, guys, is, Dan was talking about moving files around. We had a discovery call yesterday with a client, and I think Patrick will remember this because I think it was your client. I had a client who's still copying and pasting and thinking that's okay. They're literally copying and pasting content into their PIM and their website. I'm like, oh, we can stop that. There's a path here. And if you recall, right, we had a client who's web developer. There was fear, Dan. They're like, oh, these guys are talking about this fancy WPML thing that's just going to extract the content. No, that's what I'm paid for. So that web developer was protecting his domain and said, no, I want to copy and paste. Well, this was awesome. We did traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese, and guess what happened? They pasted the simplified parts of the simplified Chinese into the traditional and vice versa. It was a salad. So our solution was start over. It's like, you want to copy and paste? So much fun the first time. Try that again.
I think having a risk-based approach to Patrick, your point here is, I think that's where we're evolving into as well, is I think that there is a chance to increase automation for some content where you could, have a workflow that is, almost 100% automated, and then have triggers or monitoring tools like say, hey, maybe this content is being viewed a lot. Maybe we then trigger a human post editing or something like that. You can use data-based decision making. We're getting a lot of downvotes on this. Maybe we should look at the translation because people might not be, you can find that level of comfort of full automation and where humans need to fit into it. And again, it's looking at things pragmatically and what's the exposure or the risk. In some content, it's never going to be fully automated, nor should it be fully automated. So I think that's the point. As good as machine translation and as good as AI has gotten, I feel better knowing that the medicine dosage amounts on my packaging has been looked at by a human. I just feel a little bit better knowing that a human has signed off on the fact that it's like, oh wait, are you sure I should be taking 200 milliliters of this?
Right. That's a thing, right? There was a story that I won't mention the chain, but that were fully automated translation on the indications that they were printing on bottles. And a woman walks in and she had a simple iron prescription and it was 6 times the amount and she had iron poisoning. It's like, it's real. It's like, there should be some checks. You're absolutely right, Dan. There should be. But I love, and that's the thing that, I think people maybe that haven't had a chance to look at automated workflows or tools like Blackbird is, there are plenty of birds, which are synonymous for the recipes, essentially, if you will, or workflows or blueprints, with checkpoints where even delay steps, like, oh, okay, well, this happens, so there's a delay here because now it's with the human who's in their TMS working things through. And then when they're done, it reactivates the workflow. So there's some really, really cool checkpoints, some QA tools that are built in, like the Taos model, and really the sky's the limit. And that's, again, why do we stress start with the business problem, work backwards? Because, well, you could make something very cool in Blackbird without knowing where you want to end up, and it'll look awesome. It'll have 30 steps to it. It'll be cool, but does it solve the business problem? And I think that's the key. So, Patrick, what have you got next?
Yeah, I want to bring up one of my favorite snafus as well that I've seen.
Is it a movie reference?
No, it's not, but not as high stakes as something maybe on a medicine bottle, but it was, I think, on a food product. And it's the Spanish translation was for made in Turkey, and they used Turkey the animal instead of Turkey the country. So like anyone in the translation industry was probably beside themselves with laughter on that and just wondering how that could happen. But because again, anyone who knows Spanish knows those are two very different words, but in English they're both just turkey. So that one always gets me whenever I see that pop through my LinkedIn every couple months.
Then I know you're consuming translation snafus, right? Because the algorithm keeps giving them to you. So that's good. That's good. I love it.
Yeah. So the other question I have is just thinking kind of ahead. I know we talked about focusing on today's problems versus the future of kind of what do you see as what does the next generation of language professionals need to be fluent in besides languages? I know we've talked a lot about kind of the tech and everything that surrounds what used to be just a translation job, I'll call it, versus now there's a lot more at play.
Yeah, I think it is process-minded people. That's a top skill that you're going to need, is to understand process mapping, process interaction. Customer service, customer success is going to be critical here, because the more you're automating things in the background and doing AI-related things, customers tend not to like that. They don't like the AI responses. They don't like the automated, like, thank you, we have received your ticket. Like, I think being able to work with customers and understand their problems, so you can solve them, be empathetic to what they're trying to do. And I think that's going to be a huge necessity in our industry right now. So I think if you're looking at traditional roles right now where there might be project coordinators, project managers in our industry where it's like red pill, blue pill. There you go. Either make the path where it's like I don't feel comfortable in front of customers, so I'm going to embrace the more process side so I can do some process automation and do that. Or it's like, yeah, I got a bit of a personality, I'm a bit of a ham, so I'm going to go on the client side. I think that's where you can start then to hone your skills and then identify opportunities to grow. I think that anytime you have a chance to shadow or sit on a client demo or client presentation or a client meeting, it's a learning opportunity. And then it's not just sitting there and like working on the side while you're half listening. It's absorbing yourself in that meeting. And then a follow-up is like, hey, I know you said this, or hey, can you elaborate on this so I'm better at this? Same thing with process. Like, I mean, you can definitely do some shadowing with key processes and outside of your realm. Sit with finance, sit with HR, sit with sales, sit with all these groups to understand how they work and how they function. Because then you get this whole 360-degree view of an organization. And that's where the power starts with automation. As you can say, it's like, oh, wait, we've got our CRM over here that doesn't talk to our project management system. That's double data entry. That's double work. How can we automate that? Or it's like, I see the salespeople doing a lot of like research on these customers. Could we use AI to create a company profile for this customer? We put the customer name in or put the customer website in and it extracts, like AI just builds the body of a customer profile in a CRM. Yeah. So I think that's where you can start to make this branching of where you want to go. But it's definitely process-minded people, customer-facing people are going to have a huge chance to succeed moving forward in our industry.
I love that. That's really good. So, Dan, one thing that people they wouldn't know about you. They meet you at Blackbird, like this is a serious individual. Hobby, anything. What's one thing you would share? It's like people wouldn't know this about me.
Wow, so much. Geez. Podcasting, I've been podcasting for 12, 13 years now. I had a movie podcast, by the way, Patrick. So I got to actually speak to some really cool people in Hollywood. Probably my favorite one, Sam Rockwell, great actor, fantastic actor. I got to chat with him and we were talking about his TV, and it was like such a cool, like surreal moment where he's like, so what kind of TV do you have? Like, I want to buy a new TV. And it was just like such a fun human moment talking to people. But yeah, I did a lot of like 80s movies. I'm a child of the 80s, of course. So, like some of my favorite movies, like Monster Squad. Like I got to speak with people like from Highlander, and so I did a lot of like cool 80s movies. Also the guy that did visual effects for 2001 Space Odyssey, so got to learn a lot about like working with Kubrick. And so yeah, I love films, I love music. It's backwards, but this is them Crooked Vultures, so I'm always typically wearing a band t-shirt. But yeah, listen, if I've made a movie, I've wrote a book, I've done podcasting. Like I'm a jack of all trades. I really, there's paintings around here that I've done in my house. So I like being creative, and I think that's what helps my career too. Is the creativity helps me solve problems because I can address things. There is no box for me. Like there is the outside the box, inside, but there is no box. It's a problem, and we can solve it. And yeah.
I love that. You're in a great place based on all of that, I think.
Again, it was a passion play, and it hasn't disappointed, so it's I'm about 2+ months in now, and it is every day so cool to like be playing around with automations and testing things out and helping Peter, you and our customers like try to solve their problems and win some business. Because you said this early on in the show too, is like we're all in this together. I think that there is oftentimes like, yeah, of course, like we're trying to grow our businesses and there's a competitive nature to it. Absolutely great. But there's also this concept of we should be encouraging customers to produce more contents, right? And how do we make them reduce the selection process of the content that they should be localizing? Because if they localize more content, that means more global communications, which means more connectivity between people and cultures around the world. And that's a good thing, right? It's good that there's more in-language content that's out there that can be consumed. So we, in this industry, helping customers produce more content, then it creates more business, more opportunity, right? And then more stuff can go around as opposed to fighting for the scraps.
Absolutely. The day comes when one of us can do $70 billion worth of work. And, that's a moderate estimate, I think, these days that people are throwing around. Then that's when you're like, oh, I can't help anyone. Well, there's not one of us. I don't care if you're the largest that can do $70 billion worth of work. So why not collaborate? I mean, one of my favorite things is the ALC technology roundtable that I'm in. We meet once a month. There's some great people in there. We just like bounce ideas off one another. And of course, I think they secretly think I work for Blackbird because I do talk about Blackbird a lot. I think they secretly, I just, out of full clarity, I don't work there. I would love to. I mean, these are some fun guys to hang out with, right? I got to hang out with Bruno and Matthias in Montreal. Like, these are some fun guys. Like, okay, they're great. And so I would say that, like, those opportunities you get where you can compare notes is amazing. And if you feel safe in your environment, which Scott Bass, who leads that group, does a phenomenal job. Love that group. Love all the people in it. Great bunch of folks to hang out with. So this is the time in the podcast, Dan, where we talk about biggest takeaway or biggest point that you'd like to reinforce or something maybe that we missed. And you get to go first.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Thank you once again for having me. I'd say my biggest takeaway, my biggest point is lessons that you learned in kindergarten should resonate throughout your entire life. And if you go to a conference and you're a jerk to people, then you failed at learning things in kindergarten that should go throughout the rest of your life. Yeah, seriously though, there's probably maybe a handful of people in the world that I would consider AI experts. Like, I probably count on one hand. So if anyone's coming to you saying, oh, I'm an AI expert, you know nothing, you need me, it's probably fool's gold. It's probably snake oil. And I think, be wary of that. And, just be conscious of the fact that we're all trying to figure out how AI plays a role in our lives, in our businesses. And, I was telling my wife today, ChatGPT gave me the biggest compliment yesterday and I was feeling all great about myself. And then I was like, this is kind of actually scary. The fact that like they're buttering me up for the future. Again, just, I could make an AI reference as a Spielberg Kubrick thing. I could do that, but, I don't know if Patrick's still keeping count, but yeah. But listen, just be kind. Come on. Just be kind to people.
I love that, Dan. Patrick, how about you?
I've told my chat GPT to not tell me what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. So that has been helpful. I'm like, don't just like be a people pleaser, like give it to me straight. So hopefully I've set the tone and it has latched onto that prompt that I gave it. But I think my big takeaway is that there's lots of different ways in to the language industry. Like we talked about, like soft skills will get you a long way as well. Like my way in, I never, like coming out of school, I've never was like, oh, I want to work for a language company. Like I studied Spanish, I studied translation, and I had a business minor. I'm like, how do I bring all this stuff together? But I think something Dan said too, of like having that customer service experience through different jobs throughout high school and college, like really goes a long way to like, okay, people are always going to come to you with problems. And like, if you have that solutions oriented mindset, like how you're trained or how you're educated or whatever, like is great, but like having that solutions oriented mindset and just like having that frame of mind will really get you very, very far.
I love that. I mean, I'm going to build off of what both of you said. I am very thankful for my upbringing, which was very modest. And I was a busboy. I sold shoes. One of my favorite jobs is in high school. I used to turn literally, and it puts me in a stereotype here. I used to turn the lights on at the baseball field, and then I would do my homework, and then I would turn the lights off. That was probably one of my more complex jobs. I believe that's probably automated at this point with a timer. But back in 1988, that wasn't how we rolled. So, but then probably some of my most formative work was when I worked for an airline. I was a reservations agent. So I was in customer service and I was in the frequent flyer department, got my first exposure to databases and computer systems. And all of that was very formative. But kind of that strand that crossed that, I had some really good managers. And Dan, I love, be kind. And the ones that I had one or two, I think, that were not nice people. Well, like I started to formulate in my head, well, that's not who you want to be. That's not who you want to model yourself after. And I think think it's important that we don't lose this, right? We talked a lot about AI today and its roles, but this is where you can excel, is those people skills and that wonderful tapestry of creative work that you've done, Dan, and customer service work. And Patrick, you've done a bunch of things too, and now in a couple different industries. All those things make us who we are. And that's going to be awfully tough for AI to manipulate. I have one more movie reference. You know what? My AI, my son and I actually talk about this, right? Because the new Blade Runner, right? Ana de Armas as kind of the new AI. If you guys haven't seen that movie, that's my other movie reference. I want my AI to be Ana de Armas. So another movie reference. Well, with that, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining this episode of Translation Confidential. This is Peter, Patrick, and Dan Milczarski signing off.